Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world. Now let's get started with Robert, Qualio founder and CEO, and our show host.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's show. Really excited to share the conversation with Rob, CEO of Qualio, the #1 rated, easiest to use quality management system, and the founders of Brazen Bio. Have you ever wondered why so many new biotech companies don't survive the first valley of death, which is launch? In many cases, it's the lack of access to laboratory equipment and advisors. And today's guests, Shawn Carbonell, MD, Ph.D., and Brent Witgen, Ph.D., co-founded Brazen Bio to help biotech founders through that first valley of death and achieve their mission to advance human health. Brazen Bio is building a really unique turnkey incubator program with state-of-the-art laboratory access, including specialized equipment, technical support, expert advisors, and even housing accommodation. Let's get into the discussion. Enjoy.
Shawn, Brent, thank you both for joining today. I had a lot of fun reading up on the background behind what you folks are doing, and I think it's really amazing. So thank you for joining and sharing your story. I guess the big question I have based on, where we sit as Qualio and my role is always fascinated about the whys and your thesis on this industry, how it's growing, how it's evolving. Maybe you could give me a bit of background as to why Brazen Bio. What's the journey to doing this?
Exactly. So thanks again, Robert. Brazen Bio, we exist to help biotech founders advance human health. And really, so we're addressing two problems. Number one, unmet medical needs, right? There are many diseases out there where there are very few treatments or no treatments. And on the other hand, there are many scientists, there are many students who may have solutions for those unmet needs. But starting a biotech company is difficult. It's not like starting a tech company where you can just walk into Starbucks with a laptop and use their Wi-Fi and develop your MVP tapping on the keyboard. So, you need massive infrastructure, you need, millions of dollars of equipment, or at least access to it, critical mass of people around you. It's a lot more complicated. And so, it's no surprise that there aren't more biotech founders. And basically I'm reaching back 10 years to Shawn Carbonell 10 years ago when I was founding my first biotech company, Synergy, and actually living through all these barriers and these valleys of death. And truly the first valley of death in biotech startups is launch. And so that's what we're trying to address.
Yeah, really nicely stated, Shawn. I'm curious, Brent, Shawn, how did you folks meet? Do you both come from starting your own biotech companies? I'd be curious as to how that's evolved and how you're the right team for this.
Yeah, let me jump into that one. So Shawn and I met over 20 years ago in academia when we were training. So we've been friends, colleagues, collaborators for over 2 decades. And when I joined industry after my postdoc, I actually looked to join Shawn on his first venture, and we've kept in close contact and been looking for the right opportunities. So while he was lifting off his first startup with Synergy, I had been in industry on the big pharma side. And now it's time for us to come together with Brazen Bio.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I'm curious, why do you folks see that now is the time for this?
Yeah. So, like I said, 10 years ago when I was starting, it was very difficult. We didn't have the infrastructure that we have today in sort of the WeWork rental labs. We're sitting in one right now, Great One Biolabs LA at the Lundquist Institute. But even then, it's still difficult just to get started. And so, we see a massive opportunity in that. And that's part of our thesis is right. Most of the deals are these massive 8 or 9 figure Series A's that are going to Nobel laureates, or at least companies based on an idea from a Nobel laureate who is led by, a 20-year veteran pharma team. And you see very few founders like me who, a lone wolf founder with an idea in a lab. And I literally took an idea from the lab, I brought it to the bench, and 10 years later, raised $20 million. And just this year treated, our first patient in a phase 1 clinical trial for glioblastoma, brain cancer.
Oh, wow.
And, so I've seen it from start to finish, and it should be easier. And we're trying to make it easier for people.
Yeah, I guess it can be made a lot shorter, right? I think what you folks are doing is fascinating. I want to ask a bit more about the accelerator and incubator, the incubator piece itself. I'll just say that I'm a big believer in this general trend. I think it's starting to become pretty clear that just like the last 15 years, we've seen this incubated and accelerated software companies have just grown at such a high rate, and that entire ecosystem has evolved. It looks like we're seeing so many lessons from that industry being applied in here. And I think so many analogs. And I feel like the industry is kind of ready now for that type of support. So I'm curious, that outside of yourselves, how would you describe the landscape for incubators, for teams that are working on exciting things across bio?
It's a great question. I mean, so, we're obviously not the first. There, the university incubators, the local incubators through government and nonprofits, and of course, your classic YC indie bio accelerators, which are associated with a fund. And so, but really, the supply side, there are way more entrepreneurs than there are slots at these incubators, right? So there's still a shortage in that regard. So we're trying to address that, but we're also providing, sort of a differentiated product in that. Y Combinator, although you do get sort of the bump of being a YC alum and those introductions, those warm introductions, other than the check, that's pretty much all you get, and you have to fend for yourself. With us, it's plug and play. We provide the infrastructure from day one. You get a lab. If you need housing here in LA, we provide housing. We also provide something unique as a service layer. So, lab assistance, as well as admin assistance and access to our interns. So it's a turnkey product that we're developing here. And so that's how we're differentiated, as well as, our unique network that we've put together, including our senior fellowship. But certainly, I think there's a lot of room for other incubators to be in the space, of course. Like I said, and again, there's so much unmet need out in the healthcare space. Again, diseases that need more attention. One cool thing, actually, just to add on that, we also would like to partner with foundations and nonprofits interested in particular diseases, so that they could, potentially sponsor a fellowship through the accelerator incubator program. And that's one way that we can potentially work together to address these unmet needs.
With that in mind, it sounds like there's a lot of services and supports there. What would the ideal team or candidate look like for that first cohort that you're building right now, I believe?
Sure. So, we are fairly flexible at this point, and so our incubator is sort of an alpha, if you will, still a prototype. So it'll be very interesting. We'll be learning as we go. But we envision three main groups of people. Number one, current students, grad students and undergrads, people who just finished a graduate degree and maybe thinking about a postdoc. So this could be more like a postdoctoral fellowship, entrepreneurial style. And then anyone in transition, anyone from industry, anyone from academia, who has an idea and maybe some proof of concept or just a really good idea and sort of the credibility to make it a reality. And so those are the people that we're looking for. And we are focused, though, on RxDX, that therapeutics and diagnostics at this point, because again, that's where the unmet need is. These other incubators, some of them are focused on a lot of consumer biotech and agricultural biotech and things like that, which is great. And biotech meats is huge right now, but and that's not to say that we won't look at a company like that, but we really want to address the unmet medical needs as well as wellness. So not just diseases, but also wellness.
So you're looking first time people, a lot of cases that have either some promising research or ideas. You can put resources around those, and you're looking for applications. They're not really industrial processing applications, but actual like therapeutic use cases. Okay, that's really, really helpful to know. I know that you've been running some programs for funding this. Maybe you could tell me about how you've been building interest, excitement, and bringing capital on board.
Sure. So we're pretty limited in what we can say about that because we are using regulation crowdfunding. We have a crowdfund campaign open right now on wefunder.com. We provided you the link, and hopefully that'll be in the show notes.
Absolutely, happy to.
But yeah, so we're using that mechanism, and other than saying all the information you need is on that website, that's all we can really comment on. But we're doing that very intentionally.
Completely understand.
Because we're trying to build community. Again, we see Brazen Bio as a big platform company. And so we're trying to build the network. Each investor will become an evangelist for us. So we see that as a massive positive.
I get that. How do you see, I'm curious, maybe this is something you can talk about. How do you see things like WeFunder, right? So we're talking about the infrastructure and costs of doing anything in this space. It's pretty spectacular that you folks are able to use vehicles like this to create the infrastructure you're building to be able to support this generation of companies. It's a far cry away from a decade ago, like you said, where companies were IPOing before they were getting kind of meaningful progress along the go-to-market funnel. Do you see this being something that's part of the evolution of this industry, or does this just fit really what you're doing?
No, I think it carries forth. So we're sort of we're drinking our own champagne, if you will. We're going through it. We will encourage our the companies that result from our incubator to do the same thing, and then we're also going to give them a lot of assistance with grant applications so that they can get their early work done. But I see it as being the new model, especially with the new laws or the new rules that came into effect as of March 15th.
Yeah.
Which, the increased raise on limits.
So there's other companies like Qualio that are out there now. So we look at it as this life sciences tech stack, similar to the rise of like DevOps in a way supporting software companies is becoming now I think a really exciting space. And of course, I would say that because we're in there, but you see the work being done and this replatforming and these new supports being built. How are ways that companies like Qualio or other companies across this tech stack could support or be part of this?
Absolutely. Brent, do you want to comment?
I would like to. In fact, this is a great question because there's so much general need across the space for entrepreneurs, bio-entrepreneurs, founders. There's a lot to be said about simple awareness and getting involved and listening, asking questions, and finding out where the gaps are in the skill sets and expertise, because there ultimately are synergies to be harvested. So I would say specifically being curious and asking about what you're working on, what your challenges are, and then offering to get involved somehow because something fruitful will spin out of it down the road.
Yeah. The way I often liken this to is for lots of companies that I know that have gone through incubators or accelerators, it was incredibly valuable in addition to the program supports to be able to get the AWS credits, the Stripe processing credits, the HubSpot, if that's what you wanted to build your marketing automation on. And lots of those items really helped. And I think it's a big opportunity to help encourage or support this next generation of companies. We covered a lot here, and if we had more time, I'd go deeper on several of these. But what I think might be interesting to ask is, if you look forward, 5-10 years, I mean, what would you like this to look like, you think, across the next 5-10 years? How are you thinking about measuring success?
Sure. Well, as we say in our campaign, in 5 years, we'd like to have helped launch 100 biotech companies. So in a nutshell, that's it. And then continue from there, right? Our 10-year vision really is to put everything under one roof and create a vertically integrated accelerator, which includes everything from the beginning parts, which is similar to our Envision incubator currently, but then including everything up through phase 1 scale GMP manufacturing, for instance, and then also regulatory and clinical trial capabilities. So let's put that all under one roof and call that the Brazen Incubator. That's our 10-year vision.
Yeah, and with that, I'm curious. You folks are based in LA, which is a place I like spending time when I can. Lots of people do, particularly here in Northern California. How do you think the location affects the type of company or how you run the incubator? Because you're outside of some of the really traditional hubs. And I think there's arguments you can make that how that might be actually an advantage. I'm curious how you think of that.
Yep. Let me answer that one because there's certainly a bridge between Northern and Southern California, and LA is right in the middle. There's so much hunger and appetite to grow the biotech community. We're overwhelmed with the interest and commitment with the locals, the academia, the tech space, as well as all the bio-entrepreneurs who are hungry to get involved. So I think we're positioned very well geographically.
Yeah. Plus palm trees and sunshine, right?
Yeah. As somebody from Ireland, I'm all for palm trees and sunshine when I can have it. I know that we're kind of getting near the end with it, but one thing that I kind of read about, I thought might be interesting is you folks have like an advisory board capacity too. I think you might have mentioned it briefly at the beginning, but I think people underestimate the impact it is to get access to people that can unlock things. Maybe before we finish up, could you tell me a bit about that? How you've created that advisory board and how you think that can help companies?
Absolutely. So this all goes to sort of the turnkey solution, right? These are we have two levels. We have the Brazen Advisory Board, which is a formal advisory board for the company, but then we have the Senior Fellowship, which is the advisory board sort of for the entrepreneurs. And so these are all people we've worked with and through, I've worked with at OncoSynergy, my previous company. I've worked with a lot of consultants in my days, both terrible and great. And obviously we've only asked the great ones to join us. So everyone that's on the Senior Fellowship, we've personally worked with and we like working with. And so that's a huge asset. And it runs the gamut from, CMC expertise to, development, academia and medicine. And we even have, media folks and commercialization folks and one person in quality. So, and that can grow. Hi, Robert. So that's part of the solution. It's sort of an honorary pro bono consulting group, if you will, council, and also not just their direct expertise, but their network. So there's another layer beyond that. So we think it's a massive value add.
I would agree. And there's one question I forgot to ask before we sign off. Brazen Bio. It sounds great, but why Brazen? Is there something behind that name?
Well, there's a couple layers there as well. So, you do have to be bold to do this sort of thing, right? When I started OncoSynergy back in 2010, 2011, I was at UCSF, so I was surrounded by other people who wanted to do the same thing. Of those people, and there were dozens, I only know 3 people who actually got funded. Oh, wow. And, it could be the person, but also circumstances. And so again, we're trying to solve the external aspects, but you do have to have a certain brazen will to move forward, the persistence and the patience to do this for 10 years, and knowing that it's going to be difficult, the ups and downs. I almost quit the company twice because it was so difficult, and so that's part of it. And also, it's also a throwback to my Oxford College Brasenose, which used to be known as Brazen Nose. So there's some history.
There is. Appreciate that. And I can echo the difficulty in getting some of that research funding. We had somebody speaking to us on the podcast recently as well. It's really difficult. So nice to see you folks helping pierce that. Last question, sign off question. I think it's nice to ask if you could write a tweet and send it to everybody in the industry that they would read, what would it say?
Are you brazen?
Oh, that's cool. I like that. I like that short. So you don't need the expanded character set. Just the original.
Don't need the 280. Don't need 280. Don't need multiple parts. Just hashtag are you brazen?
Shawn, Brent, thank you very much for this. We're adding the links to the WeFunder program or all some of those other elements to the show notes. Last thing, where can people go to learn more? Is it there or is there somewhere else people should check you out?
Brazen.bio or brazenbio.com. And we're also on all of these social medias as Brazen Bio.
Awesome. Well, we'll get those added too, and I'll make sure to subscribe and follow your progress. Thank you very much for joining. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with everybody.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.